back to another episode of OTA Clips. We've been uploading a lot on this channel. As usual, I'm Griffin Senek, joined by my co-host Mac Rommel, and a familiar face to the channel, a good friend of ours, Gerard, is back on here with us today. And we're going to be discussing, you can guess it by the thumbnail of the video, the NBA trade deadline, the latest in the NBA. We haven't discussed the NBA in weeks, probably since the James Harden trade. It's been a while.
Yeah.
That is our bad for sure. But we're back today. We're going to be talking some NBA, a bunch of the moves, and we're going to jump right in with the biggest move of the day. The Orlando Magic really unloading. They unloaded three of their better players today, and the best one being Nikola Vucevic, their star center. He is headed to the Chicago Bulls along with Al-Farouq Aminu. Probably botched, but botching names is something not new to the channel. And in return to Orlando, going to be Otto Porter, Wendell Carter Jr., and two first-round picks. So I'm going to start with you, Gerard. What are your thoughts on the trade? And looking at it for both sides, what do you like? What do you don't like? What are your thoughts?
I actually thought this trade was a very even trade. I mean, the Magic are definitely not contenders this year. I mean, they're having a really down year, and they were getting rid of everyone. They're starting to rebuild. And Zach LaVine really won this trade. He got his guy. He got his center, Nikola Vucevic, and he got another all-star on his team. And the Magic did get back two key players in Otto Porter and Wendell Carter Jr., who was both young and very solid players, and they got two first-round picks with that. So I think it was a fair trade for both sides.
Yep, 100%. Vucevic, obviously, going to Chicago. For the Bulls right now, they're 10th in the East, 19-24. And right now, they really did make the surprise move of the day after acquiring Vucevic. And they also went in for, I'm going to try and not botch his name either, Al-Farouq Amino, something like that, to put around Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, and right now, suddenly, Chicago's veteran core. The trade costed the Bills Wendell Carter Jr. and a couple of lightly projected first-round picks, of course, but I do think it is worth it for one of the better centers in the league.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for the Bulls. Obviously, Zach LaVine, he needed another star there. They've got guys like Kobe White, Lauri Markkanen is how you pronounce that. Like you said, Mac, I know who are great players, but you needed a true all-star, true star, and Vucevic is that. I mean, you look at the stats, 24.5 points a game, 11.8 boards and 3.8 assists, shooting 40% from three. He's efficient from everywhere. He can do it anything you want. He will be obviously the second best player on this team to Zach LaVine, who is, really achieving stardom at the moment. I like this move a lot for Chicago, and I think for Orlando, it's just a sign of the rebuild. And I think the key for them is the draft picks. Otto Porter, I think, is just a salary dump. He's kind of a guy who really overpaid in my eyes. A guy who, when used in the right minutes and off the bench, can be really efficient, but as a starter has proved that he's just not quite there in the league. Wendell Carter, seventh pick, he solid guy at Duke, 10.9 points a game, 7.8 boards this year. So it's something to add to the Magic's young core with Fultz, Isaac. Those guys are locked up long term. You add Wendell, we'll see what happens there. Obviously, Mo Bamba hasn't panned out, so for the Magic, this deal is kind of about Wendell Carter, the two draft picks. But looking at the Bulls, and I think this is where we can jump to next. I really like them as a contender now in the East. Obviously, they're not going to be on the level of Brooklyn or maybe not even Milwaukee per se, but this team made good moves today. They also acquired Troy Brown Jr., Daniel Theis, other good depth players, to pair with these players. Right now, they're 10th in the East. That's eligible for the play, and I assume they're going to drastically improve with these moves, probably work their way to the middle of the pack. So I'll pose this one to you, Mac. What are your thoughts on the Bulls right now matching up in the Eastern Conference? Do you think they can compete with some of these top teams, or do you think, they're still, a key probably move or two away from really, truly contending?
I think they're close. I don't think they are there yet. Of course, you said they had a Daniel Theis and Troy Brown Jr. For depth purposes, on a 3-year deal. So I think these are great players to add to the team. I don't think they are there yet, but soon enough, I do think that the playoff drought will end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the 76ers, the Nets, Milwaukee, they all have 3 stars. The Bulls are really only at a 2-star level right now. And if you can add one more star into that lineup, maybe Markelle Fultz or Cole Anthony can even rise to stardom. Oh, it's Cole Anthony on the Magic. Yeah, Cole Anthony's on the Magic. But if so is Markel Fultz. But if the Bulls can add one more star and they can maybe produce someone from the younger in the system, or Lauri Markkanen can step up, or anyone, they definitely just need, my main point is they definitely need one more star.
Yeah, I like their young core right now. I mean, you mentioned guys like Kobe White, Lauri Markkanen, Patrick Williams, a first round pick who, a lot of people didn't know coming out at the draft. He's really impressed this year. He's playing great. I think they're a star away, probably at the small forward position, even though Patrick Williams is there, or at the point guard. I mean, I like Kobe White, but I mean, I'm just thinking if you compare someone like I don't know. I think they just need a vet. I mean, they got a veteran in Vucevic, but just another strong player who can do a lot for your team. I think just someone who can go out there, rebound the ball, pass the ball. Probably a bigger guy. I like a small forward for this team. You move Williams to the bench. I feel like that can be a good move. No names coming to mind necessarily right off the bat. I mean, maybe in a offseason they'll pursue a Kawhi Leonard type player. I mean, that would really elevate the Bulls to a level that they'd be a really strong team. Levine, Kawhi, and Vucevic would be something that hard to stop. But for right now, I do think they're not quite there, but they'll be in the playoffs, and they might be able to win a series or so. We'll see. Another move for the Orlando Magic today, who just unloaded, it seems, Aaron Gordon. Really mainly known for those crazy dunk contests that he's been robbed of. Obviously, the one with Zach LaVine, and the one last year with Derek Jones Jr. He's going to Denver now, as well as Gary Clark. And in return to Orlando's getting Gary Harris, probably a salary dump more type player. He's solid though. Young guard RJ Hampton, and another first round pick. So 3 first round picks on the day for Orlando. They also got 2 seconds in the Evan Fournier deal with Boston. So Gerard, I'm going to start with you here. Thoughts on this deal? Obviously, Denver right now 5th in the West, a pretty solid team, 8 games above 500, but the West is a tough conference to be in. So, your thoughts on the move and the state of the Nuggets as a whole right now.
I think it's a very good move for both teams. Aaron Gordon expressed his frustration with the Magic, and he wanted out, and he got out. And the Magic did get back 2 solid players in Gary Harris and RJ Hampton, who I thought was going to be a top 3 rookie this year. He hasn't really panned out in Denver, but he still does have some opportunity to grow, and a first round pick. So I think this was a very good move for both teams. And I think that the Nuggets got another player that can really help them elevate to a top team in the West.
Yep. For the Magic, those fans have been begging Orlando to stop chasing mediocrity in that 8th seed for years now. And this year they really unloaded after dumping Gordon especially. But over the rest of the season, they'll be giving minutes to newly acquired Wendell Carter Jr. and RJ Hampton. Next year, the Magic will add a couple of 2021 first-round picks, Markel Fultz and Jonathan Isaac to that core. And then for the Nuggets, right now, after that big gain of Aaron Gordon, they're going to be hoping that they can have that big forward it needs to contend with the likes of LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard in the Western Conference playoffs. He won't be able to shut those guys down, but he's had success at slowing them down in the past. So I think this is a good trade overall for both teams. The fans of the Magic are not going to be chasing that mediocrity anymore.
Yeah, I think Denver had a really good day in general today. I mean, this team has taken chances on guys that seem to fall. You look at their past drafts, they drafted Michael Porter Jr., obviously, who's having a fantastic season. He's been so great for them this year. They went and drafted Bol, who, hasn't played too much, but he's been solid when he's played. RJ Hampton, another one of those guys. Just going back to Orlando, you said Gerard, he hasn't quite panned out. I think, he hasn't quite panned out exactly. For sure, but also due to a lack of minutes, I think can be attributed to that. He hasn't really gotten a fair shot, and I think Orlando, he's going to get more of that fair shot. The guard spot's pretty open. They obviously do have some good point guards in Terrence Ross, primarily leading the shooting guard. RJ Hampton will get good minutes. For Denver, they added JaVale McGee in that trade for Cleveland. This team needed depth, and at the end of the day, they got big league depth. They got JaVale McGee, who, is going to replace Isaiah Hartenstein as that backup center per se. And, JaVale's an established guy with championship pedigree, and that's what they need. They didn't really have that kind of guy. Obviously, you got the stars. You got Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray. Those 2 guys, they've proven they're elite in this sport. Jamal Murray has proven he can play in the playoffs. Adding Aaron Gordon, it just gives you another guy to put on that team that's solid. He's averaging near 15 points a game. I like the move. I don't know if they're necessarily going to compete with the Lakers if they're healthy. Obviously, if the Lakers, let's say Anthony Davis, LeBron James aren't healthy, in the playoffs. This Nuggets team, I mean, the West is wide open at that point. I mean, there's a lot of good teams. The Clippers, though, seem to be a mess. They did trade for Rondo today, which we'll talk about in a bit. But, I think the Lakers, if healthy, I think are the team to beat. But if the Lakers continue to be, plagued by injuries, I do believe the Nuggets, could, they could really compete in this conference. I think anyone can, but I think this Aaron Gordon move is a great move for the team as a whole. And, good for Aaron Gordon. He got out and, he's now on a potential championship contending team. So, good for Aaron Gordon.
Yep, 100%. It's going to be tough to beat those Lakers if they are fully healthy. You also have teams like the Jazz, Suns, of course, you said the Clippers too. So Nuggets, they do have a chance to compete in the Western Conference, but we'll have to see how things turn out in the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, only time will tell with the Denver Nuggets, but certainly a good day for them acquiring two big men that should really help them out. Another team, buzzer beater deals came out a few minutes after the trade deadline was complete. Victor Oladipo will be playing for a third team this year. He's headed to Miami, and Miami really gave up nothing. Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a draft swap in return to Houston, who just, their franchise just right now seems to be unraveling. Obviously, just coming off that 20-game losing streak, that's just, purely embarrassing. Obviously, Christian Wood was out for a significant amount of time, but Victor Oladipo was part of that James Harden deal. Now it really looks like they didn't get much more than draft picks for Harden, which you really got to consider. They traded Karis LeVert away for Oladipo, and it seems like that was now for nothing. But Gerard, I'll start with you. Miami, I mean, this is a team. They didn't trade Duncan Robinson. They didn't trade Tyler Herro in this deal. They got Victor Oladipo, another starter pair with already a talented team, and Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo already there, Goran Dragic. I mean, this team has a lot of stars. So, what do you think of the deal for Miami?
I really think it was a great deal for Miami. I mean, you saw that they made a run last year in the bubble. They were a 4 seed and made it to the championship. And now adding a guy like Victor Oladipo, who's proven he can score with the best of them, it's a really big move. And I think another key part of the deal was that not getting rid of Tyler Herro or Duncan Robinson. Those two guys were really big. There are really key parts for the Heat team. And I saw that they weren't trying to get rid of them all day. And they didn't get rid of them. And they got a great score out of it.
Yep, Oladipo, obviously, as you said, he can score with the best of them. He's averaging 20 points per game this season. For the Rockets, Griffin spoken it pretty well. They really didn't get much return aside from that potential draft swap in this trade. But for the Heat, adding Victor Oladipo and Bjelica for Avery Bradley, who's been injured for most of the season, Mo Harkless, who's out of the rotation, is a pretty big upgrade. The Heat will also be in the mix for LaMarcus Aldridge from the buyout, which we'll speak on a little bit later as well. So if they come away with him, the Heat, you could expect them to be in the mix for another NBA Finals run soon.
Yeah, the Heat had a great. They made a great move here. Victor Oladipo, he's like you guys said, he's proven he can play. Averaging 20 points. That'll go down obviously. A lot more scores on that Miami Heat team, like we've been talking about. But Miami, they knew they had to make a move. They knew they had to get someone. Obviously, they're fifth in the East right now. They're a 500 team, but this team right now on paper is a fantastic team, and I guess that's where we can go now. But I will speak on the Rockets a little more real quick. They had to trade Oladipo, and I respect that. And you basically got you knew that he was not resigning. You weren't going to resign him, so you got some improved draft picks or whatnot out of it. But for the Houston Rockets right now, that you really got two players you can build around, and that's Christian Wood and maybe even Kevin Porter Jr. As your only real building blocks there. So. For Houston, they're just not getting young. I mean, the players you acquired are two guys that are, veterans in the league that are, they're not going to be part of your future. And the next time Houston will be in the playoffs, those guys will be long gone. So, not a good trade for Houston per se, but Miami, I mean, that's where I'll go now. And I'll start with you, Mac. Do you think this Miami team, obviously, they're rumored to be linked with Aldridge, and, that would obviously help them a bunch. But, right now on paper, no Aldridge, none of the other free agents or buyout candidates, can this team compete? Obviously, it's hard to compete with Brooklyn, and it's hard to say anyone's better than Brooklyn. But some of those other teams like Philadelphia, Milwaukee, those kind of teams, could we see this Heat team, leap them? Not maybe in the standings, but just overall in strength and potentially skill. And do you think this Miami Heat team can compete with those kind of teams?
I do think so. Of course, you said they had the names on paper. The Aldridge signing that has not happened yet. So right now, I do think they are in a good position to compete. You got the names. It kind of reminds me of my poor old Cowboys. You have the names, you just can't put it together. So I do think they have the pieces to compete, but we'll have to see as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that Miami can make a run with a head coach like Eric Spoelstra, who's proven to take teams to the finals multiple times, and a GM like Pat Riley. And they have the parts to do it. I mean, they have Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Victor Oladipo now, Tyler Hero. With all those guys, I think they can compete with the Nets. It will definitely be an uphill battle, but I feel like they could get them in a 7-game series and possibly even win.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's tough to pick anyone over a healthy Brooklyn Nets team. I mean, I think that team is just going to be unstoppable. We've seen how they've been playing with Kyrie and Harden. You know, they went on that West Coast trip without KD, and I mean, they tore up all those teams, and those are all quality teams out there. So for me, I can't put them above Brooklyn. They added Blake Griffin too. They might add Drummond. I mean, this Brooklyn team is just going to be at another level. But in terms of Milwaukee, Philly, those kind of teams, I think they're right up there with those kind of teams. You look at those teams, they obviously each have big threes, but the Heat do now too. And arguably the Heat's depth is better than all these teams. I mean, outside the big three, Miami's got Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Precious Achiuwa. That guy's a solid rookie, big man for them. So they got guys who can play. This team is no joke. They're a deep team. They've got so many guys that you're looking 8 deep, 9 deep of really quality basketball players, and that's a key that I think led them to go on their run in the bubble. Obviously, star play by Jimmy Butler. That guy was unconscious, hitting shots unconsciously in the bubble. But it's key to have depth and guys here. If someone's not having a good night, you can pull them out and know that a guy on the bench is going to be able to step in, play good minutes, and be able to compete with the best of the best in the NBA. And for me, that allows Miami to compete with every team up to Brooklyn in the Eastern Conference. I think Miami's in a good spot though, and obviously we'll talk about Aldridge, but that signing would for sure help. Power forward, probably one of their weakest positions right now after the trade of trading Kelly Olynyk as well.
Yep, we're going to have to see how they pair up with some of these other teams. Of course, Hornets, Nets, Bucks, 76ers, but Nets right now, as you said.
Hornets are in the dump without LaMelo, though. So
they have the pieces, and they could put up a good fight against the Nets, as Gerard said, in a 7-game series.
You got to put some respect on the Knicks name also. I mean, they're really playing well this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks, we can talk about it real quick. The Knicks have had a great year. We haven't talked about it on the podcast, but really shocked. I mean, I've been shocked at how well they're playing. Their defense has been so great under Tom Thibodeau. Obviously, no moves today. So the Knicks, everyone knows the Knicks aren't going to be competing for a championship today. But, Julius Randle, that guy is a star. What do you want to admit it or not? He's a star player. Obi Toppin really not looking great. Kevin Knox, they're missing on their first round pick. The only one who really looks like he might pan out is RJ. RJ's been nice. And Emmanuel quickly as well. He's been a very good rookie for them. Their other rookies and young guys are kind of a mess, but they got the core foundation, and that's what they need. Mitchell Robinson's still there. He's been playing good. Obviously he's been injured, but when healthy, he's played good. So, Mitch Robinson, Emmanuel quickly, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, that's a great core for the New York Knicks, and that's what they've needed for years. They needed a good coach. They got that. So it seems like the Knicks are trending in the right direction. We'll see if they can land another star or so in the offseason. Yeah, I guess that will do it for the Knicks. You guys don't have anything to say. So we'll move on. A lot of other trades happen, a lot of other quality players. For instance, Norman Powell was traded today, Evan Fournier, like we mentioned earlier, Rajon Rondo, JJ Redick. Out of all the other moves that happened today, what was one move that caught your eye that you think could really have a sneaky impact on the league? I'll start with Gerard.
I really think a move that could have a sneaky impact on the league is why the Clippers would trade for Rajon Rondo. I mean, Lou Will is such a good presence off the bench. He has been the sixth man of the year pretty much his whole career. Like, not actually, but he has been the sixth man of the year his whole career. And Rajon Rondo is older now, and I know he's a great point guard and can dish it out with the best of them, but I don't know why they would make this trade. They also gave up 2 seconds and cash considerations. I'm just dumbfounded on why the Clippers would ever make this trade.
Yep, I agree with you. That's the trade I want to talk about. And it was no secret that the Clippers were looking for help at the point guard position. And it was even more widely known that they were shopping Lou Williams. In the end, they pulled off this trade, and they hoped that Rondo could channel the playoff alter ego we saw recently as last summer in the bubble. Atlanta, they're continuing their push for the playoffs, and they hope that Williams' return to his hometown will help reignite that bucket getting fire. And that was kind of extinguished this season while he was with LA. This move, we won't really be able to judge it until the postseason. But if Rondo plays well alongside Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, it could potentially help bring a title to the Clippers.
I thought it was a solid move for the Clippers. I mean, I think the guy that they really should have went out and got was Lonzo Ball. I think it would have been so huge. He is a guy who can do it all, pass the ball, shoot the ball. He's been shooting very much. He's improved a lot in terms of his shooting. Solid defender. But Rondo is not a bad move. Speaking on your report, Gerard, Lou Will at this point in his career, he's not the best. I mean, he's definitely getting there in terms of being washed a little bit. He's shooting all right, 42% from the field, but he's playing a lot of minutes, 12 points. He was all right, but for them, Rondo was the guy they needed. They needed a point general. They need a guy who can play point guard that they can plug into on the team because they didn't have that guy. And I think Rondo's just a better fit for them. He's also a champion. It's never bad to add a guy who's won, a guy who's done that. Obviously, they've got a champion in Kawhi Leonard. That guy's great, but with guys who struggle in the playoffs like Paul George and some of those other guys, having a guy who has playoff experience, two-time champ in Rajon Rondo, good passer, good defender. That's what this team needed in my eyes. And I think Rondo will be a great presence for them. A move that I really liked was the Norman Powell move to the Portland Trailblazers. Norman Powell, guy who's kind of gone under the radar, not under the radar per se, but, is a really, quality guy. I'm trying to pull up his stats right now. There we go. He's a quality guy. He's a guy who's averaging a sneaky 20 this year. He's 27 years of age. He's a guy I believe is under contract. Maybe not. He actually might not be under contract. Let me see. Let me. I'll give you a check. Actually, it doesn't say, so can't check that. But Norman Powell for the Blazers, guy who you're going to be able to plug in. The Blazers team is a great shooting team. You got Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum. They had good shooters. Great Gary Trent, Rodney Hood. Those are those are not easy guys to lose from. Gary Trent, really young player. He's going to be a star in the league, potentially. So Toronto got a really good young guard who I expect them to potentially lock up, pair with Fred VanVleet for the future there. That's a great pairing there. Rodney Hood, good veteran shooter, but Norman Powell, that's another piece for the Blazers. And, this is a team that, Yusuf Nurkic, they've got, he's a solid player. They got obviously Melo, Dame Lillard, obviously, CJ McCollum, but Norman Powell, guy who, really has improved his game, averaging 20 points. This is a move for me that, with the Lakers team that, is injured, banged up. This is a move that, puts the Blazers right in the conversation to win the West in my eyes. You got obviously, Dame Lillard, who is one of the clutchest players in the league. He's proved he can play in the playoffs. I mean, you've got great players. Norman Powell, I really like him. This guy's won a championship, been on good teams, good leader, loved by his teammates. That's the kind of guy you want, to add. Obviously, the depth the Blazers will did lose, will hurt them in my eyes. But I think it's a good move. They've obviously got good players, good depth. Robert Covington, another guy they have there who's good. But I like this move by the Blazers, and Norman Powell, really underrated guy. 20 points a game, for a guy that, I don't think anyone would really assume that from him. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that deal or any other deals, but I know I just rambled on that for a long ass time, so I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah, Powell, who was one of the hotter names coming up to this trade deadline, he ended up in Portland, as you said, with the Blazers. The whole slot alongside Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, and this is going to present and create one of the best scoring trios in the Western Conference. It's known, as you said, 20 points per game. So this is going to be a high scoring team, obviously, in the Western Conference. But they did part ways with Gary Trent Jr., who was obviously a guy who was in the middle of a breakout season, a very young guy that the Raptors hope they can build upon and make a future for in that for that Raptors team. So overall, I think Norman Powell to the Blazers will be really important for the team, especially when Lillard and McCollum they're really being trapped and tapped out of this game. Really aren't having much of an impact. I think Powell will be a good player that can come on and make some plays for this Blazers team.
I think that this was a very good move for this Blazer team, but I think the problem with this Blazer team is that they don't have enough star power. I mean, Damian Lillard is definitely a borderline top 10 player in the NBA, but then after that, it falls
Borderline,
up.
really? I think he's
I
like
think
top
he's
five.
borderline. I still think Paul
Wow.
George is better than Damian Lillard, but that's discussion for another
Oh
day.
boy, that's
Um,
a bad take, Gerard.
I,
Oh my.
I'm a Thunder fan, so I can never respect Damian Lillard. I mean,
Uh,
he could end our franchise. But getting back into it, Damian Lillard, the Trailblazers, they're a team of parts with Carmelo Anthony and CJ McCollum, and now Norman Powell and Enes Kanter and Joseph Nurkic, who was hurt for a little while. I don't know if he's back yet or not, but I know he was hurt for a little while. And they're just a team. They don't have enough star power to compete with the teams like the Clippers and the Lakers and the Nuggets. But I do think this was still a good move.
yeah. You know, I don't agree with the team Lillard. That's a hot take right there, but that's for another discussion. Maybe on the main channel, we'll bring that one out next time Gerard is on there. But we'll stick to the trade deadline today, and I mean that kind of does it. You know, really these other moves were not too big, but one of the moves that I do want to discuss ties into the next discussion that we're going to have today, which is some of these shocking non-moves. And for me, the Celtics' lack of moves was kind of the thing for me. They did acquire Evan Fournier, who should help. But this Celtics team right now, I mean, they're in the midst of, you know, they're riding the struggle bus right now. You know, eighth in the East, I believe. Yeah, 21-23. They're below 500 team. They traded Thies away for Mo Wagner, which makes them a worse team in my eyes. You know, Thies is solid quality center. Wagner, you know, never really put it together in the league. Obviously, his brother's doing his thing right now in Michigan in the March Madness tournament, which we have daily uploads of during the tournament. So stay tuned this Saturday. Once again, we'll be coming out with another episode. But back to the NBA. You know, I mean, what were your guys' thoughts? I mean, I feel like the Celtics need to go out and get a bigger piece in Fournier. I don't think Fournier is going to really allow this team to be, you know, I don't think Fournier is going to be the solution to their problems that's going to allow them to, you know, elevate themselves back to the top of the league. Obviously, you know, they got the stars, but it just doesn't seem like this team can put it together. So what are your guys' thoughts on the state of the Boston Celtics right now? I'll start with you know, either one. It doesn't.
Yep. If it was just that Fournier trade, this would have been a solid day for the Celtics. But you had to go out, and as you said, that second trade is where things went a little bit sour and kind of killed them a little bit. Daniel Thies and Javante Green sent out for Mo Wagner and Luke Cornett. So these are obviously, I mean, for me, you kind of said it too. They are downgrades at the position, and they were really done to help Boston avoid that luxury tax. And the sense really for this is there is none. He was leaving town as a free agent, obviously, after this year, probably. So you're really just hurting your team on the court for this season. So bad move on that part. But as usual for the Celtics, there was an opportunity to do something bigger. They really didn't go out and do anything. They actually downgraded as it felt, as you said. But overall, Boston, they had a solid move out first with Fournier, and then things went sideways after that Daniel Thies trade.
I think that this could be seen as a very bad day for the Celtics with getting rid of Daniel Tice. And they did get Evan Fournier, who is going to help their team out a lot. But I feel like the GM is smarter than that. And I feel like he has in the back of his mind, knowing that LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond just got bought out, he's going to go after one of the two of them. If you can get either one of them, they can fix some of your problems and it can really help out your roster. And since they were now bought out, I don't think you have to take the whole contract that they were due. So if you go get one of them, you can definitely start to compete again.
Yeah, you know, Fournier is a good guy. He's another guy who's averaging a sneaky 20. So, you know, he's no guy to, you know, look at and say, I wouldn't say the Celtics, you know, had an overall bad day. I just think there was more, this wasn't enough. You know, I think that's kind of what we're all trying to say here is that, you know, it wasn't enough for this team to take that leap and, you know, potentially go compete with the Nets, the Bucks, and the Sixers. I mean, this team has just had problems all year putting it together. They obviously have their two All-Stars in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, kind of washed at this point. You know, they got some other guys like Tristan Thompson, but you know, the lack of depth on this team is killing them. I mean, this bench unit is just not there. And you know, I think this Fournier move helps. You know, either him or Marcus Smart will be, you know, coming off the bench. Maybe both of them. I think both of them will end up coming off the bench actually. So I'm mistaken that they'll both be off the bench. So this helps the bench a lot in my eyes. You know, Mo Wagner is definitely not better than Daniel Theis. So, you're downgrading there, but overall you're upgrading the team by bringing in Fournier for the bench. That's, it's going to be a huge thing for them. Does it make them compete with Brooklyn? No, I don't think anything does. Brooklyn is just outstanding. It's crazy, but I like what you brought up, Gerard, with the buyouts. I think this team needs to go out, and I think Andre Drummond's the guy for them. Which I guess we'll tie it. We can tie it into talking about the buyouts now. But Andre Drummond is a guy who he's not the best as a Cavs fan. Stats are a little misleading, but he's a guy who can go out, get your rebounds, make buckets. And I think that's, a perfect fit potentially for this team. I feel like Aldridge necessarily, Aldridge would be good too. They need help all around at their, power forward center position. But for me, Drummond just as a rebounder is something that this team needs. And, someone who, as a big man in the paint, I just feel like they need. Aldridge would give them some championship pedigree, which they could use. But, Aldridge a little older. I feel like Drummond's the smarter move. I don't know what you guys' thoughts, but, I guess that'll tie into our next thing. Where do you guys best see Andre Drummond? Obviously one of the buyout candidates, and we'll get to Aldridge. But, Gerard, I'll start with you. Where do you like Andre Drummond in terms of where do you want him to end up?
I like Andre Drummond anywhere but Brooklyn. Like, honestly, if it's anywhere but Brooklyn, I'll be okay with it. If he goes to Brooklyn, the NBA is over. They should just sign off the season. The Nets are winning the finals. I mean, he is like you said, he's a great rebounder. He can put up a double-double for you every night. I think that he would fit well in Boston. I think that he would fit well in either LA team. Any team that needs a big, the Knicks could even use him. I think any team that needs a big, you could really use him. As long as he doesn't go to Brooklyn, I am fine with Andre Drummond.
Yep. As you said, some of the LA teams, and I'm going to give it to a team that he's been linked with, and that's the Lakers. I mean, Lakers, of course, you have LeBron James right now, but he'll provide more size. Of course, he'll finish at the rim, as you guys said. The rebounding skills are obviously there, and he'll be able to pair with Anthony Davis, Marcus Gasol, and a bunch of other players. So I think Andre Drummond to the Lakers, I was about to say the Heat, would be a good fit. And for some of the things like shot selection and defensive lapses, I think Drummond will improve there with the help of LeBron James.
Yeah, I think Drummond, like I said, I like the Celtics just as a paint presence for them. They could definitely use that. Their bigs are weak, but look, I'd be lying if I said Brooklyn isn't a great fit for him. They need a center. Obviously DeAndre Jordan's and Nick Claxton have been their guys who are, quality guys, but Drummond would fill out that five really nicely. Another team that, is a little underrated for me that, I feel like this guy could really go and help. How about the Milwaukee Bucks? That could be a really interesting fit. He's not linked there, and he's not going to end up there. But you put Andre Drummond with Giannis, with Chris Middleton, with Drew Holiday. They obviously have Brook Lopez, who's been playing center for them. But I think that's a really interesting move. The Bucks are a great defensive team with Giannis there and whatnot. So Drummond wouldn't be relied on necessarily as much for his defense. He'd kind of just be a guy who can go out, get some rebounds, which Brook Lopez doesn't really do. Brook Lopez is more of a shooting guy, which makes sense. You can obviously start Lopez. But the Bucks need depth as well. The Bucks aren't by any means a deep team. Their bench is not the best per se. So and one thing they could use is big man depth. They don't really have any strong bigs that I'm thinking of off the bench for them. So you bring in Andre Drummond, you put him off the bench, you can start him. But he's going to be a guy who can come in, get rebounds, score in the paint. That's something that this Milwaukee team I think could use off the bench. Or you could replace him with Brook Lopez, rotate the two out. And I think that could be a really good split. So Milwaukee, a sneaky team that I like. For Andre Drummond. Obviously, the next buyout candidate, though, LaMarcus Aldridge, a little older per se. I think he's like 35, 36. He's getting up there. So he's going to be wanting to go to a team that can place him right on contender. Obviously, the big dog, Woj himself. Maybe he'll come on the podcast soon. You never know these days, the guest. We do have a big NFL insider, basically the Woj of the NFL coming on in a few weeks. So stay tuned for that. You're not going to want to miss that. But LaMarcus Aldridge, Mac, where do you like him?
I like him. I like him with the Heat. I said it before. I think he would be the piece he would be a piece that the Heat could add and instantly make them a contender for the finals. I mean, they could. I'm tongue tied right now, but of course they got Oladipo, and of course if you add. I think LaMarcus Aldridge. This would be a team that would obviously be in contention for an NBA Finals run.
I agree with Mac. I really think he's going to go to the Heat. They need a veteran presence who can lead that. Like they just went to the finals, but another veteran presence who's been there and done that could really help them get over the hump. I know look, I don't think anyone's beating the Nets either. I know I said the Heat could compete with them, bring them to 7, but who's going to beat the Nets in realistically, who's going to beat the Nets? There's really no one in the NBA lining up if they're fully healthy that can do it. You would need maybe LeBron, but I don't know. I think LaMarcus Aldridge could definitely help that Heat roster out.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually finished my thought before just thinking about it, but yeah, he's been linked to the Heat, and I think that's where he'll end up. That power forward position is probably their weakest spot now on the team. And whether you want to start, Achua or whatever that guy's name is, Precious, he's precious. I love him, but LaMarcus Aldridge, he's a guy who can get, he can get points. He's not going to be relied on to score to do the thing. He's going to be a leader on the team. He's going to be a guy who can get minutes, provide a presence in the paint, which is what this team needs. He's not going to come in and shoot the ball. They got enough shooters there. LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be a guy in the paint who can get boards and be a leader. And I like the fit for Miami. I don't think I think it just makes them competitive and more competitive with some of the other teams. But like Gerard said, I mean, Brooklyn is just Brooklyn's just on another level, and I think that ties into what I want to kind of talk about. For the final segment, Brooklyn, really the top team on paper when healthy. Obviously, you got Kyrie, KD, and Harden. They have Blake Griffin. They have DeAndre Jordan. I mean, the list goes on with this team. It's straight ridiculous. Joe Harris. I mean, it's ridiculous. Brooklyn. The Los Angeles Lakers appear to be the top team, the defending champs, to be able to compete with them. So, Gerard, I'm gonna start with you. Obviously, Lakers a quiet day. There were talks with Kyle Lowry, moves like that, but they stayed put to their current roster with Schroeder, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, AD, LeBron, those guys. Can that Lakers team, if healthy, obviously, because right now, not a healthy Lakers team, if healthy, do you believe the Lakers have what it takes to take down a healthy Brooklyn Nets team?
If healthy, yes.
Yeah.
But will they be healthy? I don't know. I mean, Anthony Davis has been out for a while, and we really don't know what's going on with him. LeBron James isn't getting younger. He just had a high ankle sprain. But I don't know. LeBron James is the second best player of all time, so he could do anything.
Yep, 100%. I think the Lakers, I think a key factor, I kind of talked about this with the NFL, and really in every sports league, I like teams who have done it before. And if we're talking about teams when they're healthy, I think the Lakers had that experience. Of course, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, who knows what's up with him, as you said. But I like the experience, and I like that they've been able to do it before. And I think they do have the best shot easily to beat the Nets if fully healthy. But if they're healthy, we're going to have to see.
With the Lakers, it's interesting. I think, to beat the Nets, you got to score. The Nets are going to be scoring. There's no way any team is going to be able to defend the Nets and prevent them from putting up a ton of points. The Nets defense is their key issue. And if you can score, and I think the Lakers, they're a very good scoring team. They've got scoring presence, and no one on that team can guard Anthony Davis. So that's the key. If the Lakers can be healthy, and like you said, Gerard, we don't know what's going on with AD. It's just been quiet. They said a few weeks at first, but it's been, a month or 2 months at this point. It's been a while. And like you said, LeBron, he's going to be out. Who knows what the timetables is. So the Lakers are really in a sketchy spot. I mean, we're going to have to see what happens. Can some of these guys like Kyle Kuzma, Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell, can these guys step up? They need to. If they can't step up right now, and they're going to have to play well, because if they can't step up now, they're not going to be able to step up against Brooklyn, and that's what they need. They need these guys. LeBron and AD themselves are not going to be able to carry this team to beat Brooklyn. It's just not going to happen. Brooklyn is too all around solid. They're somehow probably deeper than the Lakers at this point with all their stars even. I mean, it blows my mind how it's happened, honestly, that Brooklyn is as good as they are. It's shocking. And when the Harden trade happened, they were still really good, but they had Blake Griffin since then. I mean, this team, it blows my mind. And they still have Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie's been hurt. Imagine if Spencer Dinwiddie was healthy. I mean, just imagine. It's crazy to think about this team. So for me, I don't know. Honestly, I haven't been watching the NBA enough to know whether that healthy Lakers team can beat the Nets. And, only time will tell. And I think, the Nets obviously are banged up. KD's not healthy right now. So who knows what's going to happen? The Nets on paper appear to be the favorite, but I think injuries are going to play a huge role in deciding the champion. If the Nets are healthy, I'm going to say I don't think a team can beat them. I think they're too good, too all around good, and just unstoppable to say. If this team is fully healthy, and they might even add Drummond or Drummond. I mean, if they add Drummond, it's really a wrap. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yep. It'll be a wrap. Two great teams. No matter of who could stay healthy, we're gonna have to see as the season goes on. But two teams competing for the NBA titles, the NBA title, excuse me. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, gonna start have to start watching more, and we'll definitely try and do our
Start
best to talk
watching in
more.
general.
Yeah, start watching in general. Exactly. I know, if you're a really big NBA guy, this might sound like we have no idea what we're talking about. It probably does. I mean, I'm
Because I
really
did.
watched many. Yeah, we don't watch too many NBA games ourselves, but we do our best to provide the best content for you guys. So obviously, let us know what you think. And as always, it was a pleasure having Gerard on. But Mac, I will let you wrap this one up as you always do.
Yep, everyone, we appreciate you all for watching as normal. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, not only on this channel, but on our main channel, Outside the Arena. Also, go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and follow us and subscribe to us over there. And make sure to follow us all on Instagram as well. My Instagram is mac.rommel. Griffin's Instagram is?
Griffin Senek.
And Gerard's Instagram is?
G.Garofolo.
And our podcast Instagram is Outside the Arena Podcast. Please feel free to reach out to any of us, really. Let us know what you guys want to see next and things you've liked, just to talk out in general, whatever it may be. But as always, we appreciate you all for watching, and we will see you all on Saturday.